The last time you went to the grocery store, something felt different. You picked up a bag of tomatoes, put it back, too expensive. You reached for blueberries, checked the price, put them back too. You stood in the beef aisle, doing the math in your head, wondering how a simple weekly shop turned into this. Nobody told you why. Today we are going to tell you exactly why your grocery bill keeps rising, and why every expert agrees it is not going back down. Not next month, not next year. On February 28, 2026, America went to war with Iran. Most Americans watched the news coverage, the explosions, the speeches, the military briefings. What they did not watch was what happened next. Quietly, slowly, invisibly. The war came home, not in the form of soldiers, not in the form of missiles, it came home in the form of your grocery bill. Let us start where you feel it most. The beef aisle. A pound of ground beef that cost you $4 last year costs you nearly $5 today. A sirloin steak that cost $10 last year now costs nearly $12. If your family spends $100 on beef every month, you are now spending $119 for the exact same meat. That is $19 gone every single month just on beef, and it is getting worse. The United States Department of Agriculture has now confirmed that beef prices are expected to rise a further 10% before the end of 2026. 10%. On top of what you were already paying. Why is this happening? America is at a 75-year low in its cattle supply. The lowest number of cattle in 3/4 of a century. Combined with the highest fuel and feed costs in years, feed costs more because fuel costs more. Fuel costs more because of the war. It always comes back to the war. Now let us walk through the rest of your grocery cart, because this is not just about beef. You reached for tomatoes last week. A bag that used to cost you $3 now costs $4.50. Same tomatoes, same farm, same bag. $1.50 more every single week. You skipped the blueberries completely. They are nearly $2 more than this time last year. You thought about raspberries? Decided against them. You are not being dramatic. You are not being irresponsible. You are doing what 37% of Americans are now doing on every single grocery trip. Running a value calculation on every item in your cart. 44% of Americans are now hunting through loyalty apps and coupon programs just to afford basic food items. These are not people in poverty, these are working Americans, middle-income families, people with jobs, people doing everything right. And they cannot afford blueberries anymore. Here's what nobody at the grocery store ever tells you. Everything you eat required fuel to get to you. The tractor that planted it, the fertilizer that grew it, the truck that moved it across the country, the ship that brought it from overseas, the refrigerator that kept it cold, the store that lit its aisles. Every single step of that journey runs on oil. According to the independent Grocers Alliance, fuel-related costs make up between 15 and 30 cents of every single dollar you spend on food, 15 to 30 cents of every dollar on fuel alone. And since February 28, 2026, fuel prices have risen 30%. Jeffrey Dorfman is a professor of agricultural and resource economics at North Carolina State University. He told Fortune magazine, "The big recent changes are the war causing spikes in diesel fertilizer and chemical prices. That is the chain that nobody explains to you. War in Iran, Strait of Hormuz closes, oil prices explode, diesel costs more, fertilizer costs more, transportation costs more, refrigeration costs more, and that cost travels up the entire food chain to one final destination, your grocery bill." But here's where it gets truly dark. It is not just transportation costs that are rising. Fertilizer is made from natural gas. When the Strait of Hormuz closed, 20% of the world's oil stopped moving. Natural gas prices surged, fertilizer prices followed, and here's the detail that changes everything. A majority of American farmers now report they cannot afford all the fertilizer they need to grow their crops at full capacity. Let that land for a moment. American farmers growing your food cannot afford to grow it the way they used to. When farmers use less fertilizer, yields go down. When yields go down, supply goes down. When supply goes down, your prices go up. And there is nothing you can do about it at the grocery store checkout. Nothing. Let us talk about what this looks like in a real American kitchen. James Giese is 62 years old. He lives alone in Madison, Wisconsin. He works, he pays his bills. By every measure, he is middle-income America. He told Bloomberg, "I am very concerned. I am probably considered middle income. But it is starting to pinch." He is now growing potatoes in his backyard to afford food in America. In 2026, James is not a statistic. James is your neighbor, your coworker, your father, your friend. And there are millions of people exactly like James right now, quietly doing the math every time they walk into a grocery store, wondering when it is going to stop. The answer that nobody wants to give you is this: not soon. The size of autumn harvest is determined by planting decisions made in the spring. Those decisions are already made. The seeds are already in the ground. Farmers planted based on the costs they were facing at planting time. Costs that already included the Iran war fuel prices, the fertilizer prices, the supply chain disruption. Even if the war ended tomorrow, the food shock from this planting season is already locked in. Professor Dorfman said it simply and honestly: you can never really catch up. Goldman Sachs confirmed it. Higher energy prices will continue to drain your spending power for the rest of 2026 and into 2027. The Bank of England, one of the most conservative financial institutions in the world, has warned that food inflation could reach 6 to 7% before the year's over. Not in Europe, not in some distant economy, here, at your grocery store, in your cart. And while your grocery bill rises, your paycheck is doing something it has not done in 3 years. It is shrinking in real terms. Inflation is running at 3.8%. Your wages grew 1.3%. That gap is not filled by a pay raise. That gap is filled by your savings. Americans are now saving money at a rate of 2.6%, one of the lowest savings rates since the global financial crisis of 2008. And when savings run dry, Americans reach for the one thing that is always available: credit cards. American credit card debt just hit $1.25 trillion, near the all-time record. Confirmed by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, you are earning less in real terms, paying more for gas, paying more for food, saving less than at any time in nearly 2 decades. And Washington is talking about winning the war. Let us be specific about what this means for your monthly budget. The average American family is already paying $450 more every month on gas and energy alone. $450, that is $5,400 a year, gone, before you even walk into a grocery store. Now add rising grocery prices on top of that. A family that spends $800 a month on groceries is now spending close to $900 for the exact same items. That is $100 more every single month just on food. Combined with the gas increase, that is $550 a month more than this time last year. $6,600 a year that working American families did not budget for, did not plan for, did not vote for, and cannot get back. This is why the savings rate has collapsed to 2.6%. This is why credit card debt has hit $1.25 trillion. This is why James Giese in Madison, Wisconsin is growing potatoes in his backyard. Not because Americans are bad with money, not because Americans are irresponsible, because $550 a month is $550 a month. No amount of budgeting makes that disappear. The only thing that makes that disappear is the thing that caused it: the war. And the war is not over. Let us zoom out for one moment, because this story is bigger than one war, bigger than 1 year. America has been here before. In 2008, when oil prices spiked to $147 a barrel, global food prices followed within months. Rice prices doubled, wheat prices tripled, but that shock ended, oil prices fell, grocery bills recovered. This time is different because the Strait of Hormuz is not just temporarily disrupted, it is actively contested. Iran controls one side, America controls the other. Both sides have declared they will not back down. And while that standoff continues, every ship that cannot pass through that waterway is another day of disrupted oil supply. Another day of higher fuel prices. Another day of higher fertilizer prices. Another day of higher food prices. For you, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization has confirmed that global food prices are now at their highest level in over 3 years, not just in America, globally. Every country that imports food, every country that imports oil, every family in every nation that buys groceries, all of them are paying for this war, whether they voted for it or not, whether they support it or not, whether they even know about the Strait of Hormuz or not. The bill arrives the same way for everyone, at the checkout, every week, without warning, without explanation, without end in sight. Here is what you need to understand. This was predictable. Before the war started, the United States Department of Agriculture was already predicting food prices would rise 3.1% in 2026, already faster than the 20-year average. Then, the war happened, and those forecasts were immediately revised upward. Because every economist knows what happens when oil supply is disrupted. Food prices follow. Every time. Without exception, the question is not whether economists predicted this, they did. The question is whether anyone making the decision to go to war was thinking about the tomatoes in your grocery cart, the ground beef in your refrigerator, the blueberries you used to buy without thinking twice. The decision to go to war was made in Washington by people with government expense accounts who do not check prices at the checkout, who do not grow potatoes in their backyard to make ends meet. The cost of that decision is not paid at the Pentagon. It is paid at your grocery store every single week by you. The last time you went to the grocery store, something felt different. Now you know exactly why. The war nobody talked about, the one being fought silently in the produce aisle, in the beef section, in the dairy fridge, it started on February 28, 2026, and according to every expert, every economist, every data point available, it is not ending soon. The seeds are planted, the prices are set, the damage is done. And Washington is still talking about winning. Not about your tomatoes, not about your beef, not about James Giese in Madison, Wisconsin growing potatoes in his backyard just to afford food. Are you feeling this at the grocery store right now? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every single one, and if someone you know is struggling with rising food prices, share this video with them. Because they deserve to know exactly why this is happening. Subscribe to WorldTechPulse for the stories that connect what happens in the world to what happens in your life. Because these two things are never separate, and nobody else is telling you both sides.